Hello, thank you for coming by. If you're looking to make a commander deck with the black cube of vampires who's read way too many Lovecraftian horrors, then Runo Stromkirk is the commander for you. Runo Stromkirk is a 1/4 vampire cleric that's 1 blue in the black with flying. It states when Runo Stromkirk enters the battlefield, put up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may reveal that card. If a creature card revealed with mana value 6 or greater is revealed, transform Runo Stromkirk. The front side is pretty nice, especially for a 3 cost. Comes into play, grab a creature from your graveyard, throw it right on top of your library. It's not the best graveyard plays for black, but maybe once we check out his transform side, we can see what it really does. On the transform side, Crothus, Lord of the Deep, is a 3/5 Kraken horror with flying. States, whenever Crothus, Lord of the Deep attacks, create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of another target attacking creature. If that creature is a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent, create 2 of those tokens instead. So here we have a vampire, which is, I guess the best we can consider is Sea Monster Tribal. I mean, you could use any creature considering that it doesn't state that the target of the attacking creature has to be a sea monster, but you can clearly see he wants it to be a sea monster to get the most of its benefits. Considering this is a sea monster tribal deck, let's start with some of the sea monsters we can add into here. Considering most of these are blue and really powerful creatures that are really difficult to deal with one way or another, you'd be surprised that the sea monsters aren't more green creatures. And so off we have the Scourge of Fleets and Junkwinder. Scourge of Fleet states when it enters the battlefield, return each creature your opponents control with toughness X or less to its owner's hands, where X is the number of islands you control. Considering this is a dual colored deck, having a lot of basic islands wouldn't be a terrible idea. Junkwinder has affinity for tokens, which means it costs 1 less for each token you control. Whenever a token enters the battlefield under your control, tap target non-land permanent an opponent controls. It doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. This is great. Every time Runo attacks, you create 1 or 2 tokens, allowing you to lock down 1 or 2 non-land permanents and just keep them out the way, preferably creatures, so our big monsters can get through and swing right to the face. Let's not forget the Hullbreaker Horror and Brineline, the Moonkraken. The Hullbreaker Horror states, flash, and the spell cannot be countered. Whenever you cast a spell, choose up 1. Return target creature you don't control to its owner's hands, or return target non-land permanent to its owner's hands. Now take note, this ability only triggers when you cast a spell, not when you make duplicates with Runo Stromkirk, so that's a big downside. However, it is a 7/8 body on the field that you could make 2 of on the field. That is very hard to take care of. Brineland the Moonkraken states when it enters the battlefield or whenever you cast a spell with converted mana cost 6 or greater, you may return target non-land permanent to its owner's hands. The best part about Brineland is that majority of the creatures we want to put on the field will be costing 6 or greater, so we'll be triggering this ability frequently. The downsides, however, is that Brineland is a legendary creature, so making a token will destroy that token. But the upside to that downside is that this ability does still trigger when it enters the battlefield. So we'll get 2 triggers. That's still pretty nice. We also have Stormtide Leviathan and Traumacratus. Stormtide Leviathan is a 8/8 island walk Leviathan that states all lands or islands in addition to other types. Creatures without flying or island walk can attack. We'll have to find ways to give our creatures island walking and or flying whenever Stormtide Leviathan is on the field, but that's no problem because Runo is a flying creature, allowing him to still attack with the Stormtide Leviathan and keep making more of those each turns. That alone in itself is enough to make the table win a board wipe. Traumacratus states it has hexproof unless it is attacking or blocking. Traumacratus can't be blocked unless all creatures defending player controls blocks it. The upside to the Traumacratus is once he's on the field and attacking, everybody's going to be blocking him, leaving an open field for you to just go right to the life points to another player. Again, the other downside as well would be the fact that it is a legendary creature, so you can't make more than 1, and without an enter the battlefield effect, making another one would do absolutely nothing for you. However, you could spend that time to make another Hullbreaker Horror and send 2 of those instead. Kraken of the Straits and Serpent of Yawning Depths share very similar strategies. Kraken of the Straits states creatures with power less than the number of islands you control can't block Kraken of the Straits. Another reason I have a bunch of basic islands in the field to make sure he gets through to the face. Serpent of the Yawning Depths states Krakens, Leviathans, Octopuses, and Serpents you control can't be blocked except by Krakens, Octopuses, Leviathans, and Serpents. This is just weird because the odds of somebody going against another deck with these kind of creatures is very unlikely, or if you're going against another tribal deck that may have a massive nexus. Otherwise, Serpent of the Yawning Depths just makes everything you have unblockable, and that's pretty much GG if they can't get rid of the creatures. The last but not least of the creatures that I would essentially auto-include, we have the Lochmere Serpent, Spawning Kraken, and Trench Behemoth. Lochmere Serpent is a 7/7 creature with flash that states you can pay blue and sacrifice an island, and it can't be blocked this turn. You may pay a black, sacrifice a swamp, and you gain 1 life and draw 1 card. You can also pay a blue and black, exile 5 target cards from an opponent's graveyard, return this card from your graveyard to your hand, and you can only activate this ability as a sorcery. This creature is just pure value engine. I mean, paying 6 to flash it may be a lot, but I mean, Cyclone of Griff is still a thing. And even then, you can still pay the mana to make sure it gets through each time. Sacrifice Island, I don't like the sacrificing of lands just because blue and black aren't very good at getting lands out the graveyards, but like, who cares? 7/7 to the face is probably going to end you a game, and if it's going to die and they want to kill it, pay a black, sacrifice a swamp, draw a card out of it before he dies, with some awesome pseudo-targeted graveyard hate as well. Exiling cards from your opponent's graveyards just to bring this back in your hand instead of your own is just so sweet. Spawning Kraken states whenever a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent you control deals combat damage to a player, create a 9/9 blue Kraken creature token. Need I say more about this? This targets everything Runo Stromkirk is going to be making doubles of, and once these things go to face, not only do these creatures already deal so much damage, the next turn, each creature that does damage is going to summon a 9/9 creature token. And you know once the Spawning Kraken is attacking, you know I'm going to choose that as my creature for Runo Stromkirk. Probably just once, just to get 3 Spawning Krakens on the field, then make a bunch of other unblockables. But those guys, each one of those triggers would then trigger each one of these, just flooding the boards with 9/9 Krakens. The Trench Behemoth states return the land you control to its owner's hand and untap it, and then it gains hexproof until the end of the turn. Whenever land enters the battlefield under control, target creature in opponent's control attacks during its controller's next combat phase if able. Now, Trench Behemoth may not be like everyone else's auto-include, but for me, I love this card. You can return a card to your hand at instant speed to give it hexproof and untap it, giving it pseudo-vigilance. Yeah, I'm down with that. Put a land into play and make a creature that won't attack because it needs to live for this chaining combo or annoyances. Make that creature attack. Get him up out of here. And like, you just start blowing holes in the creatures. This is the kind of thing I live for in blue. The next 4 cards that I'm going to briefly speak over, I wasn't sure if I would add to the deck, but at least thought I'd give them a honorable-ish mission, just because they're good. I'm not sure if they're auto-includes, but like, they're really good. We have Wonder and Deep Sea Kraken. Wonder states as long as Wonder is in your graveyard and you control an island, creatures you control have flying. With Wonder in the graveyard, we wouldn't have to worry about the Stormtide Leviathan preventing any of our other creatures with an Island Walk attacking, and it's flying. That's just absolutely difficult to deal with. Deep Sea Kraken states that it can't be blocked, and it comes in with Suspend 9 for 2 in the blue. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, if Deep Sea Kraken is suspended, remove a time counter from it. Deep Sea Kraken may not be an absolutely terrible add to the deck. Let me paint you a picture. We come to turn 3. We don't have anything in our graveyard for Runo Stromkirk to add to the top of our library, so instead we pay a Deep Sea Kraken to get some suspend counters on it. Commander's a 4-player game, so 3 other players are going to be playing spells every single turn to remove a counter from this to get it out as fast as possible. So like, if it was a 1v1 match, things are terrible, but since Commander's based off 4 people, this card's freaking awesome. Sea Dasher Octopus and Guru the Doom of Depths is also here as well. Sea Dasher Octopus states mutate, you can pay 1 in the blue to put those on top of a non-human creature to mutated. Flash, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. I chose this card because it's an octopus, so that's always good. 2, it's cheap, far cheaper than anything we have in our deck, almost by half. And 3, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we get to draw a card. If Runo is transformed and making 3 other 2/2 octopus on the field, that can get out of hand pretty quick if no one else has enough creatures to keep up. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty confident about this guy getting us a lot of card draw before it's removed. Garuda, Doom of Depths, has a companion ability, but we won't be using it for this deck. But when he enters the battlefield, each player puts the top 4 cards of the library into the graveyard. Put a creature card with an even converted mana cost from among those and put it onto the battlefield under your control. Now this deck isn't about milling or taking creatures from another person's graveyard, but like it's still pretty awesome to do. And if Garuda is attacking and we choose it with our Runo, then we put 2 more Garudas on the battlefield that both trigger, milling everybody 8 cards and putting those creatures, if any of those creatures, onto the battlefield under control if they're even numbered. That's still pretty sweet. If we could trigger that every turn, that we could take a lot of their creatures and just beat them with it. Now these big krakens and monsters are just absolutely amazing. However, we got to make sure we get Runo to transform, and to do so we got to make sure we can manipulate the top of our library to make it much easier for us. Now for this we can go through some of the obvious ones: Brainstorm, Ponder, Consider, Otherworldly Gaze, even Sensei's Divining Top are all very common cards that do exactly what we're looking for. However, there are a few I'd like to talk about that I found interesting that I thought could work here as well. Quest for Eula's Temple with House Guildmage are 2 that come to mind. Quest for Eula's Temple states at the beginning of upkeep you may look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, you may reveal it and put a quest counter on this card. At the beginning of your end step, if there are 3 more quest counters on this card, you may put a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Serpent creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. The best thing about this is it's a 1-cost enchantment. I mean, you could throw it out there on turn 1 and start getting immediate value from that turn going forward. And then the fact that once you get 3 or more counters, you can summon creatures for free every turn. That is just monstrously disgusting. See what I did there? House Guildmage states you can pay 1 in the blue, tap it, and target creature doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. Or you could pay 2 in the black, tap, and surveil 2. Now that first ability is probably, not going to be used very frequently, but that second ability, Surveil, is great. Allow you to look at the top 2 cards, put them back in any order, and anyone you don't want, throw in the graveyard, exactly where we want them to be. Surveil is just hands down the best mechanic for Runo. Not to mention we have a little 2/2 body on the field by turn 2. I'm always down for that. Connive, Concoct, and Interpret the Signs are both interesting as well. Connive, Concoct is a split card. We'll be looking mostly towards the Concoct side. That states Surveil 3, then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. With Concoct, we can not only surveil and put exactly what we want on top of the library in case we have to resummon Runo, but we also get to take a big monster from the graveyard and put it right onto the battlefield as well. This has the best of everything we want. Interpret the Sign states scry 3, then reveal the top card of your library. Draw cards equal to that card's converted mana cost. Interpret the Signs was a weird one because I wasn't sure how I felt, but I figured at least I'd put it in a mention. Considering that you can take the top 3 cards, put them back in any order you want with the scry, take something that costs 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 mana, put it on top, and then reveal it, drawing that many cards. My only downside is that it was a sorcery and it costs 6, but the possibilities are huge. Now with a deck with this many high mana cost cards, we want to make sure that we could not fall behind, because with blue-black, one of some of the worst ramp in the game, it can happen really easily. The first 3 ramp cards that come to mind, besides the average, Arcane Signet, Commander Sphere kind of thing, because we have Sword of the Animus, Solace Alacrium, and Burnished Heart. Sword of the Animus is an equipment card that gives a creature +1/+1, and whenever the equipped creatures attack, you may search your library for a basic land card and put it onto the battlefield tapped. Normally I would put this in my Lands Matters deck, but this can go to any deck, especially decks that need help with mana and it's not in their colors. Solemn Simulacrum states when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land card, put that on the battlefield tapped, and when it dies, you draw a card. This is a staple card in almost all commanders, regardless if you're able to get mana or not out of your deck, just because it's a body that gives you mana, and when it dies, you get extra cards. There's almost no reason not to run this in most decks, but this is pivotal here and we need it. And weird twist, if we need this creature, then let's say we do have Runo transformed, we could target the Simulacrum to make sure we get another into the battlefield effect and possible card draw if his dies. So, win-win, I guess. Burnished Heart is a 2/2 elk that has 3, sacrifice it, search your library for 2 basic land cards, and put them on the battlefield tapped. This card is much less staple than Solemn Simulacrum, however, it's 1 less mana. The only downside is you have to pay the mana to sacrifice it, but I don't mind. We're gonna bring it back. And in a weird world, let's say we do have this next turn, we bring out Runo, and he's the only creature card in our graveyard. We'll just put it back on top of our library and summon him again next turn, then sack him for 2 more lands again. By that point, we'll have enough mana to summon almost every creature in our deck. Another way to pseudo work mana, I guess, would be make things a bit cheaper. We have Kefnet's Monument and Sapphire Medallion. Kefnet's Monument states blue creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Whenever you cast a creature spell, target creature an opponent controls doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. The biggest cost of our decks is creature spells, so this is going to help monumentously. And if we summon a creature in the field, we can take a creature and make sure that if they're tapped, they won't untap during the next tap step. Now mind you, it doesn't tap them, so you have to keep that in mind if you play this card. Make sure they're already tapped when you choose them. Sapphire Medallion, blue spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. This is just Kefnet's Monument. Different. I won't say better per se, but definitely different. It is 1 mana less. It targets all blue spells, not just blue creature spells, but it doesn't also have a border controlling effect. These are both amazing, and I'd put them both on the battlefield as fast as I could. Now these last few cards are up to the individual player, but I'm telling you, these were really interesting cards that I thought I'd like to at least bring to your attention. Strionic Resonator, Spark Double, and Bolas Citadel are like 3 cards I'm honestly like, yo, I think I need this in my deck kind of vibe. Strionic Resonator is an artifact. If you pay 2, tap it, copy target triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. With this ability, we could choose Transformed Runo and then do his ability twice. Let's say we pick, I don't know, the Spawning Kraken and make 2 Spawning Kraken tokens that are attacking 2 times. Give us a total of 5 spawning attacking tokens that whenever each of them hit, they all spawn 9 tokens for each one that hits. This is getting insane. I thought of that and I was like, oh yeah, that's sick. Spark Double states you may have Spark Double enter the battlefield as a copy of a creature or planeswalker you control, except it enters the battlefield with an additional 1 counter on it. If it's a creature, it enters the battlefield with an additional loyalty counter if it's a planeswalker, and it isn't legendary if that permanent is legendary. Seeing Spark Double immediately makes you think having 2 transformed Runo Stromkirks on the field, triggering those abilities both twice, and just flooding the board. Or how about 2 Garudas, or even just as scary, 2 Brian Lins on the field. This is just a terrifying card to have. Bolas Citadel states you may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play the top card of your library. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its converted mana cost rather than pay its mana cost. Tap, sacrifice 10 non-land permanents, each opponent loses 10 life. Bolas Citadel needs no introduction. We all know its power, and typically once it's on the field, we know it's probably game over. Now, though this isn't a mass token generating deck, I mean it is, but like not as much. With the creatures we're generating, we can do more than 10 damage at a time with the bodies. But in response to board wipes, yeah, let's do that and just do 10 damage to everybody and get rid of our tokens. Yeah, this is just a no-brainer. And that is my deck tech for Runo Stromkirk. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you had any rebuttals or anything with add or subtract to the deck tech, please let me know in the comment section down below. The next video we should be working on will be Grolnok the Omnivore. Simic is my jam, but this is going to be a bit different for me. Frog Tribal makes no sense considering there aren't many frogs in Magic, but I'm looking forward to this. And with that, I am going to head my way up out of here. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Please do all the YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe down below. It really helps this new channel get onto the YouTube algorithm so that way we can get out there and be seen. I'm currently in the process of making a Discord channel, so you know, maybe I can chat with you guys there. And also gameplay with me and my pod shall be coming soon. We have a gaming table together and we will be getting a camera to help so we can put on a show for you guys and how we kick each other's behinds all night long. Anyhow, this is getting long. Good night, sleep well, stay awesome, goodbye.